Okay, guys, so if at all possible today, you're going to complete the mid-chapter checkpoint, which, to be honest, for you guys should go quite well because so far the chapters have been going super well for you guys, okay? So this should probably go quite quickly, which means that we're going to have time to get into lesson 9.5 as well. So I want you to try your best to get as much through the lesson as possible today. So today we're working on comparing and ordering fractions. You guys have done a lot of work on comparing fractions already. You've learned to compare when the numerator is the same, when the denominator is the same, or when neither of the same, and you can work on the missing piece strategy. So now we're just going to compare more than two fractions and figure out which one is the least, which one is the greatest, and then if there's a third one, that means it'll go in between. So, Harrison, Tad, and Dale ride their bikes to school. Harrison rides 3/4 of a mile, Tad rides 3/8 of a mile, and Dale rides 3/6 of a mile. Right away, I'm noticing that the numerator in this problem, the numerators are all the same. They all have 3 as the numerator. So I'm going to compare and order the distances the boys ride from least to greatest. So I'm going to circle the fractions that I need to use and underline the sentence that tells you what you need to do. Well, it's telling me I need to compare and order the distances the boys ride from least to greatest. So I'm going to order the fractions with the same numerator. So I've already realized that 3 is on top for all of these. So they have the same numerator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use fraction strips. Okay, and remember, all of these are the same whole, okay? They're all referring to the same size, except that this one is divided up into 4 parts because he rode 3/4 of a mile. This one is divided up into 8 parts because he rode 3/8 of a mile. And this one is divided up into 6 parts because he rode 3/6 of a mile, 3/6 of a mile. And right away, if you've been practicing the same numerator, you're going to be able to tell that if it's 3 of each of these, you're going to be able to look and say, well, right away, I know that this is going to be the greatest distance because it's got this, it's got less parts, okay? The parts are bigger. So 3 of these parts are going to be bigger than 3 of these parts. And that's because the more pieces a whole is divided into, the smaller the pieces are. The fewer pieces a whole is divided into, the larger the pieces are. Okay? So I'm going to shade 1 unit fraction for each fraction strip. Okay? So I'm just doing the unit fraction, and I'm going to do 1 unit fraction, which is 1/4, 1 unit fraction, which is 1/8, and 1 unit fraction, which is 1/6. Okay, so which one is the longest unit fraction? 1/4, definitely. Okay, and that makes sense because it's divided into bigger parts, right? And then 1/8 is going to be, 1/8 is going to be the shortest unit fraction. So step 2, shade 1 more unit fraction for each fraction strip. Okay, so I'm going to shade 1 more unit, 1 more unit, and 1 more unit. Are the shaded fourths still the longest? Yep. Are the shaded eighths still the shortest? Yep. So I'm going to continue shading the fraction strip so that 3 unit fractions are shaded for each strip. Well, I've done 1, 2. That means I've just got to do 1 more. Just got to do 1 more, and we're stopping here, we're stopping here, and we're gonna stop here, okay? Are the shaded fourths still the longest? Oh yeah, definitely. Are the shaded eighths still the shortest? Yep. So 3/4 of a mile is the longest distance, okay? It's got the longest bar here. 3/8 of the mile is the shortest distance. And then 3/6 of the mile is somewhere between the two. So the distances in order from least to greatest are going to be 3/8, that's the least, 3/6, and then 3/4. Okay? So we're going to move on to another way to compare the same numerator. So we're not going to use fraction strips. If you absolutely need to use fraction strips to understand this, then that's okay. But I want you to try practicing doing it with just the fractions, okay? And this is one trick that you can use. So you're going to order the fractions 2/6, 2/3, and 2/4. Again, I'm working with the same numerator. But I'm going to do that by thinking about the length of the unit fraction strip. Okay, so that was like what we did in the first step. Okay, in the first step when I only shaded one unit, right away I could tell which one is going to be longest and which one was going to be shortest. So I'm going to think about the length of the fraction strip. Then I'm going to label the fraction shortest, between, or longest. So the unit fraction for 2/6 is 1/6. For 2/3 is going to be 1/3. And for 2/4 it's going to be 1/4. So when ordering the three fractions, what do you know about, actually we can move this on. Okay, so remember when I'm looking at the denominator, so my numerator is still the same, they're all 1, 1, 1. When I'm looking at the denominator, this means this has been cut up into 6 pieces, this one into 3 pieces, and this one into 4 pieces. That means that 3 is going to be a bigger piece, right? Because we had to split the whole only 3 times, okay? So right away, I know that this is going to be the longest. This one is split 6 times. This one's only split 4 times. So this one's going to be the shortest. And then the one left over is going to be between, okay? And we know this because, so when ordering the three fractions, what do you know about the third fraction when you know which one is the shortest and which one is the longest? Well, essentially, I know the length of the third fraction is somewhere in between the shortest fraction and the longest fraction. So it must be longer than the shortest fraction and shorter than the longest fraction. So that's my between number. So when the numerators are the same, think about the size of the pieces to compare and order fractions. So the order from greatest, this time they want it greatest to least, is, and remember, I have to go back to the numbers that I started with, 2/3, and then my middle one, 2/4, and then my last one, 2/6. Okay, so from greatest to least this time. So we worked on same numerator, so now we're going to work on the same denominator. Okay, and for a lot of you guys, same denominator is actually the easier one because all you have to do is look at the top number and think about which one is the biggest, right? So we're going to shade the fraction strips to order 5/8, 8/8, and 3/8 from the least to greatest. Okay, so first one, shade 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to shade all the way up to here. And shade 8/8, well, that's the whole thing. That is one whole, all the way up to here. And then 3/8, I'm going to shade 1, 2, 3, all the way up to here. Okay, so when the denominators are the same size, the size of the pieces is the same. Okay, they were all split into 8s. These are all the same size. So then we think about the number of pieces to compare and order fractions. So in this case, which one is the shortest? 3/8 is the shortest, and 8/8 is the longest. So that means that 5/8 is between the two other fractions. So the order from least to greatest will be 3/8, 5/8, and 8/8. Okay? And again, the denominator one is much easier because you can just look at the numerator and say which one is the least and which one is the greatest. See the numbers go from biggest to smallest? I know that the same numerator strategy is a little bit confusing because it's actually the opposite, right? The bigger the denominator, that means that the smaller the pieces actually are. Okay, so I know that this one's a little bit confusing for you guys. So we've got the share and show. I'm actually going to leave this one for you guys to do because it's the only option for you to actually color in the fraction strip. So I want to see you guys be able to do this. So you're going to do this one on your own. This one, I'm going to do this with you. I'll do number 2 here. So write the fractions in order from least to greatest. Make sure you're paying attention from the instructions because they actually switch around afterwards. On your own, they do greatest to least. So do pay attention to that. So least to greatest, I'm looking at these and I know that, oh, I've got same denominator, okay? And that's the easier one for me. I know I can just look at the numerator and go from least to greatest. So 0 halves, 1 half, and 2 halves, which is the same as 1 whole, right? So you'll do this one on your own, and then you'll finish the practice on your own here, okay? And then you've got obviously your problem solving followed by your multiple choice at the end. All right. So guys, let me know if you have any questions. It would be really great if you could finish all of this today, but if it's not possible, it's also not the end of the world. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Have a good one.